It's really weirdly early for me. Like, I woke up much earlier than I'm recording, which is also early in the day for me. But I woke up relatively energized, and I made breakfast at a time when restaurants are still making breakfast. That doesn't happen for me. So apparently, whatever universe I've wound up in, this is me today. But regardless, what's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and welcome to another sort of art experiment, another sort of one of my own self-imposed challenges. I think I've done similar. This is bringing it way back to one of my initial ideas, kind of, but not totally, the figure drawing game, which was this thing that I did forever ago. I would effectively do gesture drawings, but this is a little bit different. But we are using a similar concept for our resources here because I have pulled up Pose Maniacs, which is this free tool. As you can see, everything is not in English. I don't know if that's Japanese or Chinese off the top of my head. The English translation isn't perfect, but it is a really good source for some nice random poses with 3D models. I'm doing the 30-second drawing version mode that they have in this. You can adjust it so that it's infinite amount of time. That's what I've done. And yeah, it's going to give me 3 random poses. So my idea was that I would take those 3 random poses and combine them with a random palette, because I am starved for inspiration and I always need a little bit of chaos and structure to get my creativity flowing. So that is what we're going to be doing today, and let's just jump right in and see what poses we get here. Boop. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is from behind. It appears to be someone supine. Can I move you? Okay, so this is the angle that I'm supposed to use, it seems. Okay. So this person is laying down? I'm actually not quite sure. But doing that. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Boop. Ooh, high kick. This one is like either high knees run or a hell of a jump. Okay, so this is the angle that we're working with. Again, I don't think that I can change it. In a lot of the other like Pose Maniac things, you can drag them around, but here it appears you can only zoom in and out, so it's set the angle for you with this as well, which is interesting. So okay, that is our second, and boop. 3, 2, 1. Alright, and we got a character lazily sitting at a desk in kind of like an anime pose, with their head in their hand. This is an anime pose, it's just like a class pose, but my brain goes to like the anime trope where the character is like sitting by the window and not paying attention to class. God, are no anime characters good students? Okay, let's open these in new tabs, and here you can see, oh, this is from below. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. So they are laying down. Pose for jumping over obstacles. I don't think that was the angle that it gave me, did it? I thought it was from the front. But you can with these, at least. Yeah. I think it was like there. I think he was slightly above. So we've got our laying down, and I guess I could even change it if I so please. Actually, I think it was like this, wasn't it? Or even like this, I think. This is very paint me like one of your French girls. Okay. Alright, and this is the one of the characters sitting at a desk. Pose of sitting at a desk with cheekbones. Yeah? Don't they all have cheekbones? So I think this was the angle that we got before, but you can adjust it to this. And yeah, I feel like the musculature doesn't move as perfectly as it could for these characters. It's just kind of like models, so they don't scrunch up the way that they probably should. But it's a good way to get some idea of anatomy. So okay, those are our 3 poses to deal with, and I'll just keep those up in here. It says I can open them in clip. I don't really like clips 3D models, and I would rather kind of try and draw these by eye as like a kind of a anatomy figure drawing level challenge anyway. So I'll just keep these up here for our first drawing, and maybe I'll just... So for our laying down pose, I'll go over to coolers, and we will randomize our colors for this first pose. So here we go. Boop. Ooh. Okay, so this is a very like sky, like sunset vibe. Interesting. It makes sense for the kind of like cooler character. Cooler. The the character, the more like lax looking like laying down pose. I know it's a bit more like suave or sexy, but you know. And that's Gamboge, Tangerine, Cinnabar, Space Cadet, and Caput Mortum. Interesting. I assume that means something else in another language as well as Gamboge, but I don't totally know. And in our next pose, this jumping guy, we will generate that palette. Woo! This is almost like it's sort of like an optical illusion almost. If you have trouble seeing colors, this is very muted. So it almost gives, especially compared to that really bright one, a black and white, like monochrome vibe. Like these are all almost tones of gray. They're not quite, but they're getting there. I'll adjust the tone of my canvas so I can see this lightest one. I think that's going to be a problem. Okay. And we got mint cream, pale dogwood, rose taupe, eggplant, which that is not eggplant, but okay. I guess it is a bit more vibrant looking down on my tablet screen, which usually tends to get a little bit more vibrant than others. Okay. And licorice. That's so weird because this almost gives to me like a much more muted version of the very first palette that we got. It's interesting. Like it's almost the same values, but okay. And so that's for our jumping guy. Finally, we have our bored in class friend here. So generate. Ooh. So we have this has very retro kind of vibes, like almost nostalgic, which I mean kind of fits for the like in school pose, right? We got dark slate gray, and this was rich black, the first one, which that's not totally a black. Come on. And this isn't a gray. This is like green. Wheat. I can't have wheat. I have celiac. Mahogany, which also doesn't look like a mahogany. Isn't that a much deeper red? That's like a burnt orange. And dark purple, which is more of a mauve in my eyes. So we have our poses. Again, laying down, jumping, sitting at a desk. And let me show you guys clip. Boop. There we go. So these are our colors. This is the palette for our laying down girl, which I'll probably just name that. This is our jumping guy. And this is school. So yeah, we got the sunsetty, again, kind of retro color scheme. Very 80s, 90s to me. This almost grayscale feeling, very purpley set with a very light mint whitey color. This does appear a little bit more black, but it's still gray to me. This kind of jewel tone. It's very like 70s. This one is like vibrant. Maybe this one is like 90s would be better to say, even though it's a little bit more, still more burnt and worn. It's like when the 90s, you know, became vintage. And this is more like 60s, 70s with the very jewel tone, like, interest to it. This is very modern beige mom to me. I'm not too interested in this palette, but that should be an interesting challenge to make seem a little bit more interesting. I guess the pose will help with it. That's a weird pose for this color palette. So yeah, I think that I'm going to finally toss this over to a speed paint voiceover for you guys and show you a little bit what I wound up doing with these poses when we get there. So see you there. Just to quickly relay the arbitrary rules I set for myself this challenge, because they always change, I decided to allow myself to use mixing and layer modes, but only for minor things. So the main character design and background had to include the solid colors from the palette, but I could use mixing for minor details like blushing and lips, and layer modes for my usual shading and lighting. With that in mind, we're probably well into the first palette and pose. I went in with the lasso fill tool to start the character design process for each of these outside of the pose, just so that I would sort of have the placement and personality of the character's outfit colors down. I think some things wound up changing once the pose was involved a few times, but overall, this let me get the idea out before moving on to the pose. For this character, I felt the dark brown made the most sense for the skin tone. Something about the red, yellow, and orange said stripes to me, specifically like knitted sweaters and socks, so I gave this girl just that along with dyed hair to match. The dark blue feels a little close in value to the brown, but I sort of used it to imply black for the roots of her hair, eyebrows, and eye color. I also used it for a denim vest and some shorts. The expressions of the models in Pose Maniacs look kind of static, which makes sense, so I wound up trying to add some personality to the expression that I felt matched the pose. I think for this one, I also adjusted the head degree a little bit. Initially, I drew this character with shoes, but I decided to just stick with the socks and have this character maybe in a comfortable situation, possibly at home or a friend's house, and just being playful, maybe flirty, up to interpretation, I guess. I think I want to call her Ronnie. She's a fiber artist who likes to knit a lot of matching sets and just coordinating a completely unique look from it. To top it all off, I wound up actually deciding to keep the palette in the picture as a swatch off to the side and using a solid color for the background so one of the squares sort of faded into it. I think it looks pretty cool. I wound up using it for all three of them. Moving on, we have almost the opposite vibe of that lax pose with a vibrant palette, a very dynamic sort of jump with that almost toned gray sort of color palette. I was unsure what way I was going to initially go with it. I figured I would do a kind of gothic look, maybe a character in that aesthetic doing parkour or running from something. Since the theme in mind was goth, I went for that very pale mint color for the skin tone. I've been trying to leave my comfort zone with outfits, and for some reason I felt like a super layered, oversized sort of Harajuku style outfit made sense. Though knowing that, I wound up sketching out all of the anatomy for this pose just to wind up covering 1/3 of it with oversized clothes. It also added to the challenge of trying to add some kind of movement to the fabric that matched the movement of the pose. But at least I had a decent jumping off point for both. I did utilize a lot of the black from the palette here, but man, it is black. I had trouble seeing my lines through it, so I wound up going in with the purple to add some highlights. I actually had to lower the opacity of the base layers so I could even see my original lines, though. I did also allow myself some blending so it wasn't too stark of a difference there. The tie and skirt were initially going to be black too, but this was one of those moments where the pose kind of indicated otherwise. I try not to have the same color overlap in these palette challenges. I think it helps with some suspension from reality. Your brain has more opportunity to change the context of the color in a different place. I also realized that I hadn't really used a lot of the pink in the initial design, so I added that to the skirt. This is Kami. They grew up kind of distant and nerdy, but recently found a sense of expression in an eclectic group of freerunners who are also really into gothic clothing. It's an interesting combination, especially when you're wearing makeup. Kami feels a bit like a superhero with an alter ego while running, though, and sometimes even jumps in to help someone when they're having trouble. And finally, we're at our last palette and pose. This was definitely the longest amount of time I spent in the color thumbnailing process, or the whole drawing, really. Initially, I was thinking of a red-headed character in a school outfit because the pose was clearly someone sitting at a desk. Then the colors made me really think of Halloween, so maybe it would better suit a witch, and I realized that I really preferred that black as a hair color. I figured maybe the kind of green-heavy look could belong to a nature-inspired character, and wound up with a kind of autumnal-looking wizard with a very eclectic kind of outfit. I am not really a fashion person, so assembling outfits isn't my strong suit, but honestly, I've been partly inspired by my recent decision to finally watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. A friend of mine got a book by the mangaka, and for some reason that pulled it from I should watch that sometime to I'm going to watch that right now, actually. I'm on part 4. The kind of wild, very model-inspired poses and clothing are definitely eye-catching, and it made me realize just how weird I could probably go with clothing designs. I'm always a practical type with my own clothing, but drawing all my characters in jeans and t-shirts sounds boring. I decided to sort of free associate an outfit I felt looked nice. Instead of being at a standard school desk, I decided to place him at more of a table-like desk. Perhaps he is a student, but more like someone in college. Obviously, I had to make things harder for me here by adding some intricacy to his surroundings. This also obviously gave me more background elements I needed to account for with the color placement. Because he's writing, obviously he needs a grimoire to write in, a pen, a fancy dip pen of course, which means we need ink, and what the hell? I might as well throw in some books on the table. This is Lorne. He's a young nature wizard who's mostly self-taught. He's constantly looking for sources of knowledge. If it weren't for his relationship with the grove he upkeeps around his home, he might never leave his house. He has a bad habit of not taking care of himself while he's writing or studying. He's the youngest acclaimed writer in the field and incredibly prolific, but wizards who've been down similar paths really worry for his health. But those are my characters for this week. I had a lot of fun with this. Probably something I'm going to wind up doing again. Having the poses helps so much with my process. I swear like 70% of my struggle is trying to hash out a pose, and palette challenges are always interesting because they push me to make decisions I don't think I would have made otherwise. Leave a like if you like this video and let me know if you want to see more of this or have any other art challenge ideas in the comments. And or you can always subscribe to catch any other fun art challenges that I do in the future. At that though, I'll leave this here and I'll see y'all next time.